Handicapper Steve here, handicapping the racing from Woodbine Racetrack here on Sunday. It is the 8th of October, 2023. It's Canadian International Day from Woodbine. I'm going to look at the Canadian International and all the other stakes races on the program. But before I get on to that, remember to please follow me on Twitter at Horse Racing Kid 5 for more selections for race courses around the world. And I mean it, around the world. Let's look at the stakes action. Races 5, 7, 9, and 10. So we have quite a few races to look at. Let's get to it right now. Starting off with the sixth race from Canada. That was races 6. What did I say? Races 6, 7, 9, 10. Not 5, 7. 9, 10. It was 6, 7, 9, 10. There we go. I can't speak. Pardon me. It's been a long day. The sixth race from Woodbine, it's the Algonquin Stakes. It's going for a purse $200,000. Races for 2-year-olds here. Field of 8 horses going to the inner turf course. The distance of ground of 1,000 meters or 5 furlongs on the Woodbine inner turf course, about 365 inner turf course, if I'm not mistaken. That's what they call it. My top selection, I'm going to go with the 3-horse Dancing Duchess. 364 in your trifecta for me. 364 trifecta. Top selection 3-horse Dancing Duchess. 2-year-old filly by Munnings. Mark Hasse trains. Javier Castellano gets the mount. The horse's most recent outing came here at Woodbine on the 16th of September. 1 mile in the grade 1 Natama. And the horse finished 6 by 11.5 lengths that day. And, had a horrible trip. Had to steady around the far turn. And then in the stretch, this horse just caused bumper cars, interfering with quite a few horses to the point of they placed this horse 13th through disqualification. I do think it was the right call. This horse was also kind of hitting the wall late. I don't think the horse wants to go a mile. I think cutting back to 5 will see a strong pace in front to close with. I think this horse could run a better trip to find the winner's circle here today. Getting, not to knock Emma Jane Wilson, getting Javier Castellano up isn't a half bad thing either. 2 back, the horse ran the Soaring Free Stakes here at Woodbine, 6.5 on the EP Taylor, 20th of August. She finished second by a neck that day, and she had a dream tracking trip. She was a little bit wide that day, but she was gaining that day. Not a bad race after all said and done. And then the My Dear over the 5.5 furlongs in July here. She finished second by 3/4 in length that day. Again, a little bit of a trouble trip, but she was gaining late, and then broke the main going 5 here in June quite nicely by a half length on the front end all throughout. Her buyers have been, decently enough to win here. Back to sprinting, I'm going to give her a shot. I think the New York Invader, the 6-horse split streak for Dylan Davis, could get the job done. One on the melon at Saratoga going 5.5 quite nicely against State Breds by a half length, showing some nice speed. Even the races before that, he showed some decent speed on dirt. Coming here to turf, I'll give the shortest a shot on 3-1 on the ticket. But to recount my selection for the 6 from Woodbine's the Algonquin, gonna take the 3-horse Dancing Duchess, give kudos to the 6-horse Split Strike, 364 trifecta, use them both in the multis. The 7th race from Woodbine now, it is it's co-featured EP Taylor Stakes. It's grade 1 event going for a $750,000 purse for fillies, mares, 3-year-olds, and upwards. We have a field of 10 horses going 2,000 meters or a mile quarter on the EP Taylor turf course between the International and the EP Taylor. I think this is the better race of the afternoon. Definitely grade 1 quality horses. My top selection here, I'm going to go take the 4-horse with the Moonlight. I'm going to go 4-8-1 in your trifecta. 4-8-1 trifecta, top selection of 4-horse with the Moonlight. This 4-year-old field by Frankel. Charlie Outby trains for Godolphin. William Buick comes in to ride this horse. The horse's most recent outing came in the Dahlia at Newmarket. Soft ground, a mile and 8th, 7th of May. This horse doesn't like soft ground. She finished 6 by 13 lengths that day. She was with him early on, but then just crumbled. She just wasn't handling the going late. I think refreshing here, going a mile and a quarter. I know it's a tough ask here, but it's not the world's toughest race that she's faced. And I think she'll be back in a better spot here with some fast ground. 2 back of the Jenny Wiley at Keeneland, a mile 16th in mid-April. She finished second by 3 lengths that day. And Italian really freaked that day and was a next start winner. This horse just, kind of stalked that day. Needs something more, but she ran her heart out against a decent horse on the day. And then the Balanchine at Maidan, a mile and 8th, 24th of May, winning by 4.5 lengths that day. All the Appleby horses, the Godolphin horses run massive at Maidan. When you get Buick up there, he run even better. And this horse just really won for fun. Won at a trot before that in the Cape Verde at Maidan. And the races here states on this side of the Atlantic last year wasn't bad at all. Won the placed in the Lake Placid a week prior in the Saratoga Oaks over the mile 316. She won by 1 3/4 lengths, being McCulloch Home, was coming to become a very good filly. And then prior to that, she finished second behind McCulloch in the Belmont Oaks. So not a bad horse she's been running against here. And if you look at some of the horses she's been facing before in the UK, they're not bad horses either. Coming here at 3-1, she could definitely win. I think a wise guy horse here could be the 8 horse Atomic Blonde for Trevor McCarthy and Christophe Clements. Hasn't won on this side of the pond. Most recent victory came last October at San Siro, nearly a year to the day, October the 9th in a local Group 3, where she won by 1 3/4 lengths. And she had a bit of a tracking trip that day, but she had to be used a lot, but she got the job done. A very good, strong performance. Came back to run a Campanelle 2 weeks later, where she just never quickened up. I do think the quick turnaround got to her that day, but and then since coming to the Clement barn earlier this year, she had a decent third in the Orchid, where she just couldn't stay the final furlong that day. I think the mile and a half got to her. Came back to run a decent third in Sheepshead Bay. It took her down in class before that, or after that, behind Skims at Belmont going a mile and eighth. But she's run these decent buyers. I think mile and a quarter is that trip she wants to get. She's going to get it today. She's been crying out for it. Looks like at 15-1 as an upsetter. I'll use her here on the ticket. But to recount my selection for the 7 from Woodbine, it is the E.P. Taylor. Going to take as a top selection with the 4 horse with the Moonlight. Give kudos to the 8 horse Atomic Blonde. 4-8-1, Tri-Cast Trifecta, 4-8 in your multi-race. Let's head over to the featured 9th race now from Woodbine, which is the Canadian International. It's a Grade 1 event going for a $750,000 purse, race for 3-year-olds and upwards. We have a field of 8 horses going 2,000 meters or a mile and a quarter on the E.P. Taylor turf course. I don't like the distance decrease. I think there's not enough mile and a half races here in this country. It's good that it's still like a long distance race here going a mile and a quarter, but I just like mile and a half races. Maybe next year they could decrease the trip, but this race, if I'm not mistaken, it's been on hiatus for quite a few seasons, so it's good to see it back. But like I said, we have to increase the distance maybe a little bit next year to maybe at least a mile 3/8. Something I've noticed on the Woodbine circuit the last since the pandemic began, they used to run a lot of these long distance turf races. Since the pandemic, it seems like they're running less and less of them. So I don't know why that is, but it's a little worrying. But my top selection here, I'm going to go take the 8 horse Royal Champion. I'm going to go 8-7-4 in our Tri-Cast Trifecta. 8-7-4 Tri-Cast Trifecta. Top selection 8 horse Royal Champion. This 5-year-old gun by Charmardal. Roger Varian trains. James Doyle gets on this one. First time Lasix. First start stateside. Most recently at York on the 20th of July. A mile 5/16 in the Group 2 York Stakes. Local prep race for the Jumpman International. And he finished third by 1.5 lengths that day. And he was with them early on that day on the soft going. But then he just never had the good turn of foot. He kind of hit the wall that day. He also had a high weight, which I think cost him. Lower weight. Fast around, which I think he should absolutely adore. He's in a better spot to win. 2 back in the Wolferton at Royal Ascot, a mile and a quarter, 20th of June. He won by 1 1/4 lengths that day. And again, he had a bit of a wide trip that day, but he stalked that day. He got the lead, and he got the job done. Beauchois Ballet actually finally found some decent form to place that day. He wanted to win quite a few starts later here in New York in the Sword Dancer at Saratoga. So, not a bad horse he got beat against that day. Royal Champion. And then they took the horse to the Huxley Stakes at Chester over the mile and a quarter. He finished 5th by 5 lengths. Again, it just does not like soft ground. He never had the turn of foot. When he runs on the fast grounds like he did at Ayr last summer over the mile and a quarter, he goes away winning by 5.5 lengths. That was a very strong run, and he ran at Epsom in a handicap on Derby Day 2022 over the mile and a quarter. Again, fast ground, he really placed up a lot. Coming here today, I'll give him a shot here. Fast ground is what he's been crying out for. I think your second likeliest winner here is a 7 horse Adamo for Chad Brown. Most recently, the Arlington Million at Colonial over the mile and a quarter. He finished third by 2 1/4 lengths that day. He was a little bit wide that day. He won more ground, but I thought he ran his heart out that day. Prior to the Turf Classic at Aqueduct off the bench going a mile and a half last October, he didn't break that day, and again, on the soft ground, nobody's catching Warlike Goddess, even though I do think her performance yesterday was a little bit more impressive, closing up into that slow pace. And then they ran her and ran this one in the Sword Dancer where he never really got going. But back to a mile and a quarter, back to fast ground. He has buyer numbers that could definitely win against these horses, like that 104 or that 103 in the place in the Manhattan last year, the 104 for the UN, 103 for the Manhattan. Like I said, I'll give him a shot here at 7-2, second off the bench. bench. Let's use him on the ticket. But to recount my selection for the ninth from Woodbine now, it's the Canadian International. Going to take the 8-horse Royal Champion. Give kudos to the 7-horse Adamo. Where are we? 8-7-4 Tricast Trifecta. 8-7 in your multi-race. The 10th race from Woodbine. It's the Nearctic Stakes. It's a grade 2 event going for a $250,000 purse. Race for 3-year-olds and upwards. We have a very full field of 13 horses entered. A baker's dozen going 1,200 meters or 6 furlongs on the E.P. Taylor lawn. My top selection, going to go take the 7-horse Lucky Score. Let's go 7-11-2 in our Tricast Trifecta. 7-11-2 Tricast Trifecta. Top selection 7-horse Lucky Score. This 5-year-old gelding by looking at Lucky. Mark Cassie trains, gets Savachi up in the saddle. The horse's most recent outing came the Woodbine Mile about a month ago here at Woodbine. A mile on the E.P. Taylor lawn 16th of September, and he finished third by 4 lengths that day. He was stalking that day. He was wide, and then he just couldn't stay the final 2. He kind of hit the wall late. I think back to a sprinting trip is something he's wanting to do. He'll see a strong pace to close up into. I think this is going to be a better spot for him to find the winner's circle, but he ran a decent buyer that day of a 97. Prior to then, the King Edward at Woodbine, 1 mile, 19th of August. He finished third by 3 1/4 lengths. War Bomber really ran a terrific race. This horse is wide. He was gaining that day, but I just think his better trip is 6. And then the Connacht Cup at Woodbine over the 7 in July. He finished third by length that day, and again he was just very wide, and he just never really got going. His most recent victory was the last race he ran 6 here in the Highlander in early July, winning by a half a length. Horrible beginning, but he closed up like an express train. A career best 100 buyer, not a bad race there. And then off the bench going 6 here on the E.P. Taylor lawn at the end of July and early June. He finished second by 2 lengths, and he had a horrible trip early on, but again he was gaining that day. He's training well, cutting back in trip at 12-1. I love him a lot. I think the 11 horse here, Big Invasion for Christophe Clement and Dylan Davis, wouldn't surprise me if he finds the winner's circle. They're looking for fast ground. If he would have ran yesterday in the Belmont Turf Sprint, first things first, it would have rained off and run on the main track, but if it was run on the turf course, it would have been a bog, which he does not like. They tried him, so he's coming here to Woodbine to run on the fast ground, or somewhat faster ground than what you would see here in New York City, but most recently ran at Saratoga, 5.5 in the Mellon in the Harvey Pack, where he just was a little bit flat. He finished second by a neck. Thin White Duke, the old man, got to him late, but this horse, he ran his heart out that day. I don't know why they ran the horse at Royal Ascot off a 10-day refreshing or 2-week refreshing in the Jubilee, but I thought that was a stupid decision. Going 6 at Royal Ascot, he finished 13th by 9 lengths, and he just never showed up after a tough race. That was a head scratcher. I want to know the reason why they ran him there, because he wasn't winning on paper, and then he ran a massive place in the Jaipur behind Caravel. Caravel freaked that day on the inside. This horse was just wide, but was gaining that day with a 99 buyer. He hasn't won since the Silks run at Goldstrom earlier this season, where he closed up from nowhere to win. He has some hidden form that could definitely win. He has some speed if he wants to use it here, or he can come off the pace. Training well at Saratoga, 3-1. I'll use him on the ticket here in this very nice turf sprint. But to recount my selection for the 10th from Woodbine, it is the Nearctic. Gonna take the 7-horse Lucky Score as a top selection. Give kudos to the 11-horse Big Invasion. 7-11-2 Tricast Trifecta. 7-11 in your multi-race. So good luck to all, and please follow me on Twitter at Horse Racing Kid 5 for more selections for race courses around the world. Good luck, everybody.